We're here to check in on the condition of our condition as an industry.
Like to use the podcast as a check-in on the numbers and what's happening. What does the health of the industry looks like? What are the key economic numbers that they should be paying attention to? And most importantly, what happened to nights booked last month and how is the summer or how is the near-term pacing?
Oh my goodness, Jamie Lane. Hello, favorite person. How are you?
Mariah Kamei, welcome to the STR Data Lab.
Is that where I am? I'm in the lab right now. It's just a padded room.
But a great announcement, the new HQ for AirDNA is up and running. You're there today.
Oh my God, we have a baller office, you guys. We moved a whole 2 blocks from where we used to be, but we did need a little bit more space. And yeah, shout out to the team that helped us move in. It's pretty awesome over here. If you're in Denver, stop by. It's right on like Market and 15th. Market and 15th, guys. We'll have a big sign. You'll find us.
And I know your marketing team can be very particular in their space. So are they heavy?
Firstly, marketing team being happy, those two things generally. That's not how we roll. But yes, we are settled in. I'll say that.
Great.
Settled in. And yeah, you'll have to come visit at some point.
Yeah, I've heard great things from my team. And shout out to my new analyst, Linda Rollins, starting last week. Happy to have you here too.
Seriously. Well, she'll be listening later, as we know. So yes, Linda. Shout out to Linda. Okay. Well, we're here. We're in the lab. We're, mixing up formulas. I don't know. I'm coming up with some really bad data jokes. We were talking about dad jokes earlier. But we are here to share with folks. You know what? For some reason, I've just got the Big Lebowski in my head. And there's that great song in that movie that's called I Just Checked In to See What Condition My Condition Was In. And I feel like that's what we're here to do today with the audience, Jamie. We're here to check in on the condition of our condition as an industry.
Yep.
Always the question du jour.
And that's what I love most when talking with people out in the field, talking with our clients, is that they like to use the podcast as a check-in on the numbers and what's happening. What does the health of the industry looks like? What are the key economic numbers that they should be paying attention to? And most importantly, what happened to nights booked last month and how is the summer or how is the near-term pacing? So should we just jump in?
Well, yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're ready to go. It sounds like maybe you've been talking to a few people about this. Not surprised. But yeah, you're right. It's always the question of supply, demand, night books, what's happening in the future. What's happening? Yeah. You tell me. You hit me with the forecast, my friend.
Yeah, so let's start with the demand side. So another, I would call it decent month for bookings. So nights booked were up roughly 12%. I say decent because over the past 8 months, nights booked has been really strong. Like we've been averaging about 20%, and 12% is actually the weakest month of growth that we've had over the past 8. So I wouldn't call it concerning yet, but if it slides further, that could be pointing to really weakening demand. Overall nights stayed was up 16% year over year. So, and really in line and actually a slight acceleration from what we'd seen last month. So people, spring break happened. Spring break ended up being one of the best on record, especially for a lot of the beach markets. Things were good. Supply, though, continues its sort of march up. We were at 20% growth year over year, which on a growth rate was down slightly or significantly from February. So if you remember last month, we were talking. It was like, it was kind of concerning that supply growth reaccelerated in February, but
Right.
that does appear to be just a blip. Uh,
Okay.
so we're now squarely on that downward trajectory, especially in beach and mountain markets.
Got it.
Uh, and that really aligns with one, what we're seeing in terms of new listings added, really weak for in terms of numbers for mountain and coastal markets. And then I saw some headlines this past week from Redfin where they were talking about mortgage applications.
Ah,
And
one
for
hell of a
second homes, they're seeing that down 50%
wow.
from pre-pandemic levels, where and that's for second homes, and for primary homes, it's only down about 13%. So the weakening housing market from higher interest rates, falling home values, is definitely impacting second home, which is primarily vacation homes that people are purchasing, which no surprise then that it's sort of flowing through into lower supply growth that we had been forecasting, but had yet to really start to show up in the data.
Yeah, which is always it's always good to get that validated at some point. I hear you. There was a little bit of a nail biting moment in February around that. And it almost feels like people, yeah, are starting to get the message, right? Like there's oversaturation in these areas, including beaches and mountains. Very interesting, very interesting. But spring break, super strong. People were traveling. People are traveling.
Yes.
People are traveling?
So
Question mark.
fortunately, the consumer spending, labor, everything is still looking great. Like on the economic side, unemployment still at 60-year lows, 3.5%. We saw a very healthy increase in employment in March, 236,000 jobs. We
Love to
had
hear
been
that.
seeing sort of north of 300, 400,000 jobs being added. That was objectively way too strong for what we
Right,
need at this point to
right.
slow the inflation numbers. So getting more, I'm going to be, I'm actually going to be happy when we see like a print where it's like 150,000 or 100,000, um,
That's
just because it shows that the economy is slowing, but not yet turning job growth negative, which means obviously people are losing their jobs, and we never want to see that. So I
right.
would say soft landing is still a possibility, where we don't go into a recession. And job numbers like the ones we saw, the job report we saw in March was, and exactly like what we want to continue to see. So wage growth slowed, job growth slowed, but still positive, still, and as I said, a very healthy number. Um, Unemployment, insurance claims, so number of people sort of filing for first time unemployment, um, is ticking up, but not in any alarming way, still at sort of very low in terms of historical figures. And then I know I'm getting into the weeds on the jobs numbers, but
Oh, I
one
like
of my
it.
favorites is the JOLTS report.
Ooh,
So it's the job opening and labor turnover survey.
I knew it
So
was an acronym. Knew it.
that's the one where they say how many jobs are actually available to be, and that people are
Applying for.
advertising, and that's coming down significantly. So if we can slow job growth through just like employers advertising fewer jobs and
Right.
not actually laying off, so like let's take a pause in hiring and not start laying people off. That would be Goldilocks moment for us of slowing the economy, but not ticking it negative.
Oh, it always strikes me at how much of this is such a balancing act, right? It's like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Everybody do your part.
Yeah, I would not want to be Jerome Powell right now trying to orchestrate that balancing act.
Oh my God, no, no, that guy's got some serious intestinal fortitude for, yeah, everything.
So the other thing we're watching is clearly prices, both for short term rentals and on the inflation side. So core inflation is ticking down at 5%. 5%'s not 9% that we were seeing last summer,
Right.
so, but it's still not 2% that the Fed wants. So coming down, but slowly. And I'm my forecast is about 3.5% by the end of the year, and we're definitely on track for that. And I think um, and we're more than likely going to see one more interest rate hike from the Fed, and then my expectation is that they pause and see um, what happens. Many forecasters are still forecasting a recession in the back half of the year, which we'll be watching the data closely for, and that could be the real factor that starts sort of slowing short-term rental demand. So people
Right.
maybe thinking twice about that vacation. Are even with a uh, recession in our baseline outlook, we aren't forecasting a decline in demand on a
Mhm.
year-to-year basis, but just further slowing of demand.
That's a really good point and a good nuance, right? Which is that still stronger than it has been in the past. It's all relative. I think you mentioned a whole bunch of historicals as it relates to the economy as well. So in terms of relative growth, we're still good, but not, obviously potentially all that pent up demand that we saw that just sort of put, I'd say, travel on methamphetamines for the why not, right? For the last few years. Is there a message in there in terms of just sort of like, hunker down and like knowing that we're going into another sort of big traveling season this summer? Um, get what you can in terms of, RevPAR and everything else. Or,
Yeah, and our expectations and occupancy that this is going to be an a relatively strong year. So, and if we look back over time, it'll probably be the second highest or third highest occupancy summer ever, behind 2021 and 2022.
okay.
Um, so not quite the 70% that we saw in 2022, or the almost 80% that we saw in 2021, but still much higher than the 65% that we saw in 2019. Um, and and we're still seeing people wait a bit to book.
Yeah.
So the lead times are still fully not back to 2019 levels. They've maybe expanded a bit from last year, but and and yeah, there's still a lot of people traveling, so it's important. And even if you haven't booked out maybe as far in advance as you would have hoped, you've still got some time open on your calendar for the summer. Like, typical lead times for summer travel are still only 60 days, and that's sort of the median. So that's 2 months in advance. We still have a good amount of time to get bookings, and that 60 days is the median. So that's half of people still booking less than 2 months in advance for summer travel. So there's still a lot of bookings yet to be had for peak season. So if you haven't sold out, that's probably good. Means that you're holding your rates, and that there's gonna be demand coming.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that a little bit with spring break as well, right? Sort of last minute bookings. So yeah, again, going back to sort of potentially normal trends for people in terms of when they're going out. So yeah, holding steady. How's your mom's bookings doing? How's I know we've talked about mom before. How's she doing? Because I know you've been doing a really good job of coaching her on like hold those rates.
Yeah,
Don't
she
get
held rates, and I think she's almost entirely booked now. So it was,
amazing.
it was. She's still not raising the rates as much as I want her to, but we're uh, at least not discounting 8 months ahead of time. So
Ugh, progress is being made. I think
progress
that's
is being made.
good advice for everyone. I almost feel like what you need to do with her is like, can you make up the difference for her? Like if you raise the rate and she doesn't, I don't know. Anyway, maybe there's some bet you can make with her. Um,
No, my new plan is I'm actually going to uh, work with some of our partners and get some new furniture for all our homes. I'm going
yes.
to say I'm going to pay you the nightly rates that you are charging. I'm going to furnish the property, charge $150 more a night, and pay off the furniture, and then I get to keep future profits off of that. And
Yeah.
uh, we'll,
Yes.
we'll, we'll, we'll see if she goes for that.
Well, I mean, I let's strong arm her into this. I don't know if does she listen to the podcast. Hi, Jamie's mom. If you do, she's going to listen to this episode. Um, well, I mean, I'm in marketing, so you know what we're going to do with all of this is we're going to turn it into a great piece of content. We're going to write a blog post about Jamie's mom and her bookings. I love this. Okay. Yeah, let's again, this do it for me, Jamie's mom. Do it for me. Don't do it for Jamie. Do it for Mariah.
I mean, it seems like a no lose situation, and she gets brand new furniture,
100%.
guaranteed revenue, and we all get to see some upside.
Yeah, I agree with you. The only danger I think is like now our listeners know that we're making these kind of offers. So this might be exclusive to family only for now.
Yeah.
um,
So, and two other points I want to make is one on ADR trends for the industry.
ooh, I
So
like
we're
that one.
still seeing slowing ADR growth.
Yep.
So we only saw ADRs up just over 2% in March, which is some of the lowest gains that we've seen. I think a big part of that is the falling occupancies and people not seeing the bookings that they've come accustomed to over
Mm,
the past 2 years, still seeing and and on average 20% supply growth. Like that's still in a lot of areas really significant new competition coming in and feeling like they need to discount because of that. Uh, we've been working on this new same home ADR index. We still haven't named it yet. We're soliciting names. So
okay,
if you have a good,
okay.
maybe I should be asking the marketing team for that.
I was
Uh,
going to say hello. No, I'm kidding.
but essentially, it sort of removes out sort of the changes in supply that happens. Like there's always new homes being added, homes coming out, and looks at homes that were available for rent both last year and this year, and what was the sort of real change in price between those two
Oh,
periods.
very
So
cool. Very
it
cool.
lets us sort of tease out how much people are really raising or lowering their rents on a year-over-year basis. And that one shows, and also ADRs down about just over 1.5%. Um, and when we look back to last year, so I know we weren't doing the podcast then, but we
Yeah.
were collecting data and writing about it. ADRs were up 10%. So just the mentality of like I was getting a 10% increase in ADRs at this time last year to now I'm only getting a 2% increase.
Yeah.
And inflation's still 5%. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's definitely some uh, and pain happening out there. There's some and just notion of weakness in the industry. And falling occupancies is the most visible way, but a lack of pricing power is where it shows up as well.
That's such a really, really good point. I mean, I guess on one hand, if you have sort of a decent mortgage rate, back in those good old days, right, you've got that going for you. But have we looked into any sort of that, like sort of the raising cost of operating as well? That's an interesting
Yeah,
point you make.
and definitely on the labor side, and we're finally seeing and for operators, the pace of wage increases begin to slow.
Okay.
Leisure and hospitality, especially um, hotels and cleaners related to lodging, uh, wage growth had been some of the strongest across any type of employment category. So that is easing some, but it's and well north of 5%. So, and if you're only raising rates 2%,
Yeah.
expense and labor is going to be your largest expense more than likely for the property. Then you're seeing some uh, and your profitability going down. And even just on the RevPAR side, so the top line revenue you're pulling in per listing, on average, that was flat this year compared to last year.
Got
And
it.
our full year forecast is it for it to be negative about down about 1%. So uh, with expenses going up, uh, revenue essentially flat for the for you. Like it's uh, an environment where profit margins are decreasing, though they were at, I would call it, abnormally high levels.
Yeah.
So it's, and part of that theme of normalization
Yeah.
that we've been sort of harping on, um, and that we're gonna see that. I was actually just speaking at a hotel conference this past, I guess that was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was actually a similar thing for hotels. They had reached, I think it was an all-time high for profit margins, and now they're actually forecasting an easing in profit margins for hotels this year too.
Gotcha. 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 Yeah, no, all of those little different factors together, and it is sort of indexing off the high. Um, it feels just like there's this sort of like hibernation mode coming in where it's just shore up what you can up, shore up what you can shore up. That was a sentence, I'm sure, somewhere. Uh, editors, no, I'm kidding. And then it's, then it's about, staying the course as we start to see, hopefully, like, a nice riding out, leveling out from the economy. And then, hopefully some strong, steady gains in the near future. Maybe more like next year, I'm guessing, than this year.
And something else I want to talk about, and this is going to be a question for you
I
because
said no questions, please. Not kidding.
it speaks to one of the trends we're now seeing for April.
Ooh.
Um, you have any more ski trips planned?
Oh, I know. I do not.
With the record snowfall that we've seen out west, and in
What's wrong with you?
particular in California and Utah, where they had that like
Oh
atmospheric
God.
river. Uh, so most ski areas that we've been tracking are extending their season, and through essentially the end of April. So in so many areas, like we're actually seeing, or April was typically like shoulder season, not very
Right.
strong
Yeah.
demand.
No.
Demand is up year over year in Mammoth Lakes, 70% for April.
Wow.
Sawtooth Mountains up 40%. Park City demand up 30%. And these are all areas where demand in March was only up 10% roughly.
That's
So
crazy.
massive increases in demand as sort of the extended sea season is really helping bookings in those regions.
I love it. Well, now I think I'm not going because demand's too high.
What you got to find is someone that maybe didn't change their prices. Like, so many of those ski markets, like you lower your prices for April,
Yep.
so maybe you can still find some good deals there.
I was about
Someone
to say, let's tell Scott, raise the rates on your place, Scott.
maybe something for our dynamic pricing tools is that they need to be
Weather.
watching the snowfalls on a regular basis.
I was just thinking that. I was like, I think we need to add a whole nother metric to our demand calculators, which is the weather.
I don't speak Boulder, but is it the NAR factor? Is that what it's called?
Okay, listen, I'm feeling a little bit stereotyped right now. But yeah, you can Schwalb Lennar into way into April in Colorado, or at least in Utah and California.
Oh, that's great. Uh,
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. We covered so much. We didn't cover, we were a little bit US centric. How are things in Europe? I know that um, you know, travel trends have been strong in terms of like flights booked and all of that good jazz. Are we seeing demand pop back up in Europe? Is travel back, baby?
Yeah, and Europe is actually seeing even stronger growth than we're seeing in the U.S. Europe, and just for some context, just recovered back to 2019 levels as of last year, where the U.S. had recovered and fully in 2021.
Right.
So Europe's about a year behind the U.S. in terms of their recovery. Uh, uh, I've got some trips planned to Europe. I know
Oh,
AirDNA is going to be on the road coming up with where we the Book Direct in London. along with the shorties at the end of April, and then I'll be heading out to Barcelona for Rental Scale Week and to speak at that conference. So really excited to get out to Europe at least in May, and then I was listening to the Delta's earnings call. Do you listen to earnings calls on a regular basis? I love those things.
I
Uh,
mean, you well, not from before I knew you, but now that you and I are friends, I'm like, oh yeah, an earnings call, baby. What am I going to watch tonight? The latest like episode of Shrinking or whatever, or earnings calls? Obviously, earnings calls. But
right.
I missed that one. I'll add it to the list.
Yeah, I think it's not on Netflix, but man, those would be interesting if we watch the live stream. Uh,
Why didn't we
uh,
do it on the podcast? We could comment as they're presented.
Yeah. So they had a very bullish outlook for summer travel.
Wow.
It was funny. They actually made a comment on, they're like, if anyone is seeing any weakness in travel, they're just finding noise in the data and it's not a trend. Uh, so uh, I think it really backs up on the strength that we've been seeing. That and yes, we see noise from here and there. We see weaker months or stronger months, but um, on on balance, like things are looking really good for the industry and for travel as we look out to the summer.
I love that. I love this concept of like noise versus like the trends, I guess. What's the opposite of noise?
Oh,
There's something there.
yeah, it's one of my favorite books.
Oh my
Uh,
God, what is it?
it's actually by Nate Silver. It's called "The Signal and the Noise." So,
Yeah.
what's the signal, and how do you break that out from the noise? Yeah,
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, those are two good new things that we should keep covering in this podcast, my friend.
I actually used to buy that for all of the analysts that started with me because it's just such a good take on. And it's like a 10-year-old book now, 15-year-old book, but nice to. Um, way of thinking about data and how to pick out things that are actually predictive and what you should be paying attention to and how to uh, and separate the I don't even know the the wheat from the chaff or the signal from the noise. Yeah,
I
uh,
was going to say,
one of those metaphors.
I love it. Yeah, I'm drawing blanks too, which usually analogies are my thing. So I don't know what that means about me. I'm a little worried about my health now. All right. Well, hey, again, shout out again to Linda. We'll just bring it full circle. We'll just bookend. Linda, book recommendation for you, girlfriend. And then, yeah, we've got a crazy, I just want to say crazy. I mean, it's going to be fun this spring, but we've got lots of travel on the books. We've got Urban Living Insights, also in London, the Shorties Awards, Short Stay Summit, Book Direct Barcelona, as you mentioned, Scale Rentals Show, which Jamie Lane will be at, the Exit Door Barcelona, and then a rendezvous, National des Lourds Sessionnaires. I'm sure I'm saying that all wrong in Paris. And then that's going to round us out into STR Forum in June. You guys, we're going to be around. We're going to be hitting the circuits. We hope to see a lot of you there. But now you know what condition our condition is in.
And what just one more shout out for my team because
Okay, do it. Do it.
I'm hiring another economist.
Oh my
So if you would
God.
love to join the AirDNA research team and find this type of invigorating conversation as something you'd want to do every day, go to airdna.co/careers and please apply.
We'll put it in the show notes. Absolutely. And guys, I will vouch for how much fun it is to work with Jamie Lang. So absolutely. It's an amazing opportunity for anyone to get who wants to be in this biz and who loves data as much as we do. Um, let's do this. All right, sir. Well, hey, you're about to, speaking of travel, I think you are heading to vacation. I think by the time this airs, you may be back. So like we're going back into the future a little bit here, but I do want to wish you a very happy vacation that doesn't involve any Slack messages.
I appreciate it.